Thank you for submitting this. And my main issue with this, the face is really well done. My main issue is the figure, of course, because it's very, very stiff. It's very Barbie-like. If you've ever seen a Barbie, the way they allow the Barbie to move, it's very limited mobility. So, the elbows are always bent. Elbow of Barbie, just to show you what I mean. The elbows are always so stiff, and it's always such a awkward looking little doll. So do you see what I mean by the way they're standing? Fuck you, man. Shit. So the way they're sort of designed to have a very, very stiff, limited pose that they always stay in. And well, this one looks a little bit more natural, I guess, but she's still stuck in that pose. So you don't want to feel like when you paint a character and you paint them with a body, the biggest obstacle that you'll ever face as the artist is one very particular obstacle. It's making it feel like the anatomy is functional. That's the root of all the issues. If you don't know how to paint arms, if you don't know how to paint legs, if you don't know how to find a spine that seems like it's responding to some sort of center of gravity or gravity itself as a whole, you're doing that because the function isn't in your mind. You're not thinking about the function behind the pose. So that's why you end up with stiff looking figures, and it's pretty much the result of all, it's the source of all the issues. It results in all the issues that you face. Any issue, just throw it at me, that you face right now because of anatomy, or in anatomy, it's because of you not thinking about the form, the function in the form. So when we think about this character here, and what she's doing, let's forget about the pose as like a sort of symbol of her personality. Let's forget about all that other character design stuff. Let's just focus on the pose. What I'm seeing is sort of fear. I'm seeing a fear, first of all, and an anxiety that's happening when you painted this character. I see this very, very crutch-like dependency on the front view, and everything sort of after you got hold of the front view, everything seemed to fit in. There is no gesture, so there is zero gesture. In my opinion, there's zero gesture because for me, gesture isn't in the arms. This is Barbie doll arms are not gesture. They don't provide any gesture. For God's sake, when you see those arrow stick guys telling you where the exit is, if your gesture looks anything like a stick man, there's zero gesture happening because the gesture source is in the spine. When you're doing a character that is sort of standing up um, or twisting around or trying to have some sort of stability against a pose, maybe their leg is compensating for the weight. That's gesture because you're thinking about the function. The human body is a real thing. So what gesture is she doing right now? How is her spine interacting with her weight? How is her standing up? Where is the weight distributed? It's a very, very basic gesture. And you have a beautiful design happening. You have a nice sort of you're going somewhere with the character. You fully painted it, so that's nice. That's great effort. Absolutely great effort. I love that. You've chosen really great colors for the skin. Absolutely great colors. I like how you shaded it on placing the lights only on a high spot. That's really smart. I just want to see a gesture. So you need to start going back to the basics. If you want to practice your gestures, it's a very, very simple task. You literally just get a blank space and start experimenting and understanding sort of your brush density, your dependency on a certain kind of brush, your anxiety in your brush strokes, all of that stuff will be tackled. So if you just sit there practicing your brushes, building up different characters together, you'll start building a comfort zone in working like this. And that's really, really important if you build a comfort zone. Because that's exactly what you want to create. You want to create flowing characters that don't seem like any anxiety was involved in their creation. If you yourself have a problem even thinking about the figure drawing, it's going to show in your work. You're not going to get away with it. It's going to show right away. If you want to practice gesture lines, you literally have to do just that. You have to draw some gesture lines. I want to see papers upon papers. If you want me to look at the way your gesture lines look, if you want me to sort of scrutinize your line weight, the kinds of lines that you're drawing, how you're working with the distance between you and your tablet and your screen. So there's also the fact that it's hard to draw on digital versus traditional. I want to see the comparison. So if you want me to see it, submit it. Submit to me a drawing you did by hand and a drawing you did on the computer, and I'll be able to see, is it a computer problem? Is it the fact that it's digital? Is it a hand weight problem? Is it a knowledge problem? So sometimes our figures look stiff for many reasons, either technique or knowledge. Sometimes you don't know how to draw a human body. You don't know the figure. You don't know the muscles. You don't know what the spine does. That's lack of knowledge. Lack of knowledge also results in a stiff figure. So lack of knowledge is one reason why your figure might look stiff. So lack of knowledge. There's also another reason. You could be really good at knowledge, but you don't know anything about technique. Alright, and technique is where we have the gesture lines, all that CS or I, X or O, all of that stuff is the shapes, 3D shapes, drawing the sort of kebab stick that stabilizes you on the ground. This is all technique. This is not knowledge, because this is stuff that makes it easy to execute the knowledge. The knowledge is its own little realm in your brain, and the technique is the technique is found in your hand, and the knowledge is found in your head. If you have a hand problem, meaning you don't know how to hold your pencil, you don't know what kind of thick lines you need, the thickness or you need, or the lack of thickness that you need, if you are not investing even a moment for technique. So before you started drawing the sketch, maybe you went straight in. Maybe you just went and started, you drew a face, and then you didn't use any lines to help you. You just went and drew the face, and then you added the neck, and you added some fur, and everything was like a scan down, and then everything was rendered in a really, really straight way. That's another way to get stiffness because of lack of technique. You're not taking a moment or two, 5 minutes maybe, to practice the pose. Do some sample poses, thumbnails even of the pose. Get some gesture lines in there. If you skip the technique phase, you will have a stiff figure. If you don't have knowledge of the human body, you will have a stiff figure. That's it. And all of this is the knowledge factor and the technique factor all have to do with function. And the function is basically what's happening in front of us. Is the body bending? Is it lunging forward? What's happening? And can you summarize it in a gesture line? I'm your teacher right now, right? And I'm telling you, I'm not completely a teacher all the time. I'm a student of art as well. And I'm telling you guys that it is impossible for me to draw a successful looking drawing if I skip the gesture lines. I have some examples maybe I can show. I've been sketching I posted them on Facebook. I've been sketching on the Google Hangouts a lot lately. And I'll show you which ones I feel like failed completely. And they are the ones that I skipped the gesture line in. I just got lazy for some reason. So where are they? Alright, here I skipped the gesture line. Really, really stiff, really, really scared. I feel like when I sketch this, you can see the inconsistency in my line weight. Severe inconsistency in my line weight. Compared to here, here. So I know how to draw faces, so my line weight was nice and thick and confident. But when it got to the torso, where to place this breast, the connection to the lion body or the feline body, I had no idea what the fuck I was doing. Because I was scared. It was one of my first sketches as well, so it's obvious that I had some anxiety. The higher I go, the more comfortable my sketches look. Let me get rid of the red. Because at that point I got my hand used to it. This is also in my opinion, a failed sketch. Because I kind of had a gesture line, as you can see, but I completely ignored it. I had this gesture line, but I completely ignored it. I didn't base it off, I didn't make it the center of gravity, first of all. I didn't make it the spine, sorry. I didn't make it the spine. I completely skipped it as the spine or the symmetry line. The higher I go, the sort of more anxiety I feel. Mermaids are kind of an easy sketch because you just follow the gesture line. But even here, I skipped my gesture line. I didn't follow it completely. So the mermaid tail looks kind of boring up here. It looks really boring. Because if I had followed this mermaid tail, there would have been more of a dynamic bend, and that would have been more elegant, and I would have stayed true to my gesture line. So this is me having anxiety. This is me not trusting my technique phase. The higher I go, the more comfortable my lines get. As you can see, I have a consistent line weight where I need it. If you look over here, I don't know how to draw hands very well, so I skipped that completely. My brain didn't have anything to give me when it came to the hands. Over here as well, this is also another level of anxiety. I didn't for some reason get my brush any lower. I was trying to make her descend. But I'll show you the one that I am most proud of, and that is, I think it's one of these. This one was kind of insecure as well. This was an insecure sketch as well. But I kind of had a good hold over the torso. So they get better as I go. And there's a great deal of patience in all of this. You have to wait through some of the waiting game in the technique, because if this is all about your hand, if this is all found in your hand, then it means your hand has to give you exercise a little. You got to give your hand a second or two to exercise, to stretch out. Sometimes I will even go to a point where I will suggest massaging your hands. It's that particular, because it's the difference between, I guess, this kind of line and this kind of line is just making sure you're comfortable with your hand even. So, does everybody know what I'm saying? What essentially am I saying in one sentence? Can you summarize what I'm saying? Let me try to find the one that I am most proud of, that I had to draw for an hour or an hour and a half before I sketched that one drawing. So that's unbelievable. I had to draw for an hour and a half before that drawing came out. And this is the one that I'm most proud of, because I had to do all of these sketches before I got to this one. And they're all like, look at this horrible, horrible line consistency. Sharp lines here, furry lines here, straight lines here. I cleaned up my lines, which is the worst thing I could do, because I had no dependency. I had full dependency on my lines, meaning I didn't forgive myself a dirty line. And so when a dirty line happened, I started cleaning it up for some reason, because I felt anxiety. I wasn't trusting my reference. They just get worse and worse as you go down, because you just have to, these lines are too thick. And where did I get those lines that are too thin? I don't know. I just couldn't, I had to work a little bit at it. So you have to be patient with your, look at this shit. You have to be patient with your process a little. This is me just practicing, I guess, on the page. This is me stretching. Before I start sketching, I usually stretch. But this, where did I put it? This one has to be pretty much, that's exactly what I have to do before I get to this level of quality. I have to draw for an hour to an hour and a half before I can get a decent looking sketch where I feel like I've spent enough time on my lines. I feel like I've practiced and stretched enough. I feel like the knowledge has been sort of, I've shook off the dust in my brain and got into it. Yeah, and I feel like I can draw without thought. So I'm in the zone. What that means is you don't have no fear anymore. The anxiety's been taken care of with the bad sketches. So that's my biggest tip for you guys if you want to start getting into anatomy, and stop working and rendering so hard. Like, look at all the rendering that you did. Imagine all this rendering on a really, really fluid pose. So my diagnosis of this would be really, really severe lack of pose fluidity. So what does that mean? That means that fluidity. So that means that no gesture lines were used. No gesture lines. And that means a lot. That's something that covers everything that I just talked about. No gesture lines means no thought about the anatomy, no thought on function. Anatomy and function were just completely neglected. Completely neglected. Okay. Sorry, I'm writing all over this. You can render, you can draw, you can choose colors. Look at how balanced all of these colors are. It's beautiful. It's just there's a slight problem happening right now with not a slight, a severe problem with the gesture. It's very Barbie-like. It's not something that you want, it's almost there, and it's not there because of one big area on the map of art. So if your skills were a map, over here you've got rendering, and then here you've got colors, and then here you've got anatomy, and then here you've got gesture lines and sketches, sketch fluidity. It's kind of related, so there's like a little bridge. This whole area of your map is black. You've only been trying to do this. You've been traveling on this road. And you haven't really been, you haven't really entered here. But you can render in color, and this has confused you. I'm so sorry to say this. I'm really sorry to say this. But it's confused you into thinking that you can paint because of rendering and color choices. Yeah, you know a little bit about faces, so let's add anatomy here, portraiture. There's no fog of war here. And I don't mean to say that you can't paint. Of course you can paint. We have a painting in front of us. This is what's rendered. It's working. But this whole part of the map is black. That means something. That means that your painting isn't going to look 100%. It's not going to look fluid. It's going to look extremely in lack. And me as the viewer, I'm not going to feel like it's really giving me anything. She's really stiff. She's just there to be pretty. She's posing like like those fashion stores where you can buy clothes and they're showcasing the clothes for you. Like that's how she's posing. And like they have a zoom up here of the shirt and the pants. This is a mystical character. She probably went through training. So now we can start thinking about the character. She probably went through training to learn all this magic. She's probably a celebrated magician in her town. You really want to make her pose like she's posing for a fashion show or a fashion shoot. You want to give her something that responds to her character design. And that comes out of, intensive study on what gestures can offer you and how gestures can provide you with personality on the character. So, to give you an example of that, if I can just find it. I don't mean to show you guys my art. I never like showing my art, but I feel like when it comes to gestures, I have to start showing my art. Um, so let me see if I can find it. I really don't like showing my work on this. I'll probably cut this out for YouTube. But, where is it? Are these the shitty ones I already showed you? Yeah. Come on, there we go. Now this one, I had to draw how many layers of work? Probably like 5, 10, 15, 20 layers of work before I got to this level of fluidity in my lines. And this is what I mean by gesture. I didn't just draw some girl standing from the side. That wasn't satisfying enough for me. What I had to do is I wanted to give her some level of pride, some level of snobbiness. As you can see, they're kind of snobby girls. That's not the one. The one's from before. So I wanted that. So the gesture allowed me to invest some personality and character into the image. And that's what I mean by you really have to, clear up this fog of war you've got going on. This foggy part of the map. Or else you won't be able to invest character into the gesture. Um, and after a while, the character sketch will satisfy you because you are a storyteller. We're all here telling stories. So for me, I feel like drawing her has satisfied me. I don't need to render her to make her seem real. She seems real enough as it is because of the way I drew her and the way she responds to me. I feel like what I thought was in my head, what I thought in my head actually came out on the paper. And that's what we're all here to do. So what I thought in my head was a personality, a kind of attitude. And combining that anatomy with the anatomy of a cat, that sort of worked very well for me. It's not always this successful. It's not always that successful, let me tell you. I don't show my shitty stuff. I mean, I showed some today, but there's more. So please invest some time into studying your figures. If there is any time to do it, it's now. It's either lack of knowledge, so I don't know I don't know you personally, but it's either a lack of knowledge, so you haven't looked at enough books and looked at the human body enough, and it's either a lack of technique, or quite possibly and very commonly it's both. Both are affecting your image right now and why it looks so stiff. It's a lack of knowledge because of a lack of practice in figure drawing, and it's a lack of technique because you haven't practiced enough to build your technique. So it's hand in hand. These two are holding hands. You see my hands? My hands suck. Okay? So it's a hand in hand type of thing. All right? So let me see what everyone's saying. Um, I like Doritos. Poop. I like how some of you took advantage of the fact that I was looking at it. I feel like I'm building technique but not storing enough knowledge. That's just because of maybe learning efficiency. Are you breaking it down into enough stages? Are you trying to deal with it all in one stage? Trying to draw the body without drawing the symmetry line, without drawing the gesture line, without drawing the shapes. That's all helping you store knowledge better, pineapple. Breaking down the drawing into stages helps you draw better, as well as helps you remember better. It means that after you drew this, you can draw it again and again and again because you had a list going on of things that you followed. This list that I'm always talking about when it comes to private tutoring or public, I always talk about this list, and if you follow this list, it won't fail you, and this list means efficient learning. Efficient learning is organized learning. If you're trying to draw a body by going to the hair and then trying to draw everything in one shot, it's not gonna work. I'm seriously trying my best right now. All right, it's not gonna work. This is your the lines will be inconsistent. They'll be shaky. They won't be smooth. Everything won't read at the end. You won't see the beautiful combination of shapes. When you see shapes together, these shapes, if I didn't draw them, I wouldn't have been able to draw this girl. That's because the list is stuck in my head. So if you want to learn better when you sketch, learn better when you study a reference, actually get the reference and draw some shapes over it. So let's say you have a picture of a dog and you want to learn some dog anatomy and store the dog anatomy. So let's say you have the actual picture. Go on the picture and start breaking it down into shapes. See how many shapes you can break it down into. How little shapes you can break it down into. Where's the gesture line? Gesture line doesn't always have to be specific to anatomy. It doesn't always have to hit every anatomical sort of combination. So it doesn't have to hit the muscles and the biceps and everything. It can just be the motion line, the actual just summary of the shape. So if a dog is standing upright, this is what I see. And then you start bringing in some shapes. And then slowly the dog will sort of start coming to life after that. But I need a reference because I'm fucking this up. So that's called efficient learning. When you're organizing it, you're taking it step by step, you'll learn better, you'll remember better. All right, what other questions? Um, my lines on the paper are fluid, but I can't get them fluid on my computer or tablet. Um, there's a lot of reasons for that. Mostly it's a distance factor, so it's practicing. If you practice, of course, if you spend more hours, you'll be able to do better. Um, For me, I haven't sketched on the computer probably before these for a couple weeks or a month or something. So I did feel the distance factor. Definitely felt that awkwardness when you first start sketching. And I think the way I got over it is just by trekking through. If you trek through that awkwardness of working away from your sketchbook and working on a tablet, there's a great distance between your hand-eye coordination. Usually we're used to seeing our pencil with our hand on the paper, but now our pencil and our paper are completely separate units on the desktop. So that's creating a distance between us and the sketch. When you're working with a sketchbook, it's very intimate and very comfortable. There isn't much anxiety. So the anxiety is increased. So you have to remember where you're feeling the anxiety from. Just trek through it and you'll eventually get out of it and you'll start creating some really confident looking sketches. Any other questions? The opposite is for me. Mapolokov says, on traditional paper my figures look stiff and altogether crappy, whereas on digital they look less so. Um, I'm not sure. Do you spend more time on it could be your elbow. It could be just not giving yourself some elbow space. If you just get that elbow up and moving and get it all floating in space, then I think you'll feel like your confidence will increase in your strokes. Um, it could also be that you spend more time on the computer than you do on your sketchbook. So that might be another reason why you're feeling that your lines on your paper look worse or your sketches look worse. Sorry, Esta, can you repeat that in brevity because I only just caught the end of the distance of the sketch scenario. I'm just saying that the distance between you and your drawing when you're drawing digitally is it increases the anxiety factor when you're sketching. So your sketches will look worse because there's more of an obstacle to deal with. When you're working with a sketchbook, you're more confident because you're closer to your line and closer to the unit that you're drawing, and there's less distance between the hand-eye coordination. Whereas in digital, there's a greater distance. That greater distance means plus anxiety. Um, Need that elbow space. Seriously, you cannot draw without elbow space if you are drawing on a sketchbook. It changed my life completely when I started adding some elbow space. And you think this is something we can overcome? Absolutely. Like I said before you came in, I said that I hadn't sketched for probably a month until I started sketching again. And I felt it. I felt that distance factor right away. And when I started sketching on the sketchbook, I felt so comfortable. I felt completely at home. And that's because it's just the distance, and you just have to trek through it, and you'll get used to it, I promise. Because I got through it, and I know you guys can. Um, my full brush set isn't available, but there are some select brushes that I added to the kits, to the book sets that are available on the website. Um, okay. So no more questions? All right. So let me just add in a quick critique of what you have already. So when I look at these horns, I see a slight symmetry problem. So, all right, so let's draw the vertical symmetry line across her face, just like this. All right. And let's draw some lines coming out of her nose and through her eyebrow arch. And not just like that, we make them wrap around. Let's do it for this one as well, and we make them wrap around. So in my eyes, they're wrapping around this way. Just like that around the head, and then they meet on this side. Sorry, it's not accurate. I'm not a scientist. But when I see this horn, if I were to draw a line coming through, this horn is coming at the top. So if we see her face from the front, one horn is coming out of the line above her eyebrow arch, and the other is coming out this way. This is something common that happens in 3/4 view. When you guys are adding accessories, this is 3/4 view, meaning you're seeing 1, 2, and 3/4. You're not seeing all the quarters of the face. This happens because you guys don't think about the symmetry line. The symmetry line helps you find everything. It helps you find the high point, where to place the highest point of the hairline. It helps you find where the chin is, where the middle of the chin is, where the middle point of the lips are. Yeah, everything is compressed here. It's not foreshortening, it's compression. But it helps you compress evenly. I have a video on how to draw a face in 3/4 view, and you can see it's really helpful if you use the symmetry line. It's nearly impossible to draw a nose without a symmetry line. It's impossible, actually. You draw a really, really weird looking nose. So this symmetry line helps you add accessories properly. When you want to draw a dangling sort of headpiece, the symmetry line tells you exactly where the lowest point of that headpiece will be, because all you have to do is find the line, find the midpoint, and then everything else goes up from that, because that's how gravity is pulling down on it, or that's how it's stuck on the face. If you have tattoos and you want to draw, the horizontal lines will help you draw some tattoos. If you want to add tattoos on the face, the symmetry line, the horizontal symmetry lines and the vertical symmetry line will help you. So if you have a tattoo, if you have a flat point here, the tattoo will travel across the face and bend with the face down towards the symmetry line. So you have these two checkpoints to help guide you where these two checkpoints are touching the face and where the high points are. There are landmarks that help you determine how to wrap around objects, how to wrap objects around other objects while respecting the form. This is all technique that I'm talking about. This is all technique. It helps my life be easier as an artist. It's observation. If you've ever seen those YouTube videos where the sketch artists sketch a face and render it really beautifully, you'll see that the first 20 minutes of that video is just blocking in shapes and lines, because the artist will not know what to do with everything unless there are some lines and some blocks that help them. Blocks for the nose, blocks for the actual cast shadow, blocks for the nostrils, individual ones for the nostrils, for the eyes. And then after they block those in, then they start sketching in some rough lines, and then they start rendering and doing their thing. This is all technique. It makes life easier. Don't try to eyeball everything. It'll take you years before you improve. This is efficient learning. I'm so sorry about my stuffy nose. One sec. Okay. So that's another thing that I want you to change. Let me try changing it for you so you can see the before and after. Okay. So I know my lessons are lately been turning more into lectures. I will try my best to get them back towards critique hour. So right now I'm thinking about the high point of her arch of her brow, which is traveling this way, and that's where the horn will source from. Just like that. That feels a lot more natural, a lot more balanced than before where we had it all the way at the top. So you made it symmetrical from where you are on the screen. So this is your head right now as you're drawing, and you're holding your pencil and you're drawing away and your hand is on the keyboard. Alright, you drew the horn symmetrical to where your eyes were on the screen instead of drawing them where they actually are on the symmetry of the object. So stop overrating your position compared to the object. Look at the object. It'll tell you where its position is and anything attached to it. Okay? So flatten. What else? Magic. Anything like that's magic, that's like a spell, it's like flames. So it always has a hot spot, and that's the most advice I can always give about flames and anything that is magical. It always has a hot spot, and that hot spot is needed because it won't feel like a legit magic spell unless there's some sort of actual, energy distortion or something like that. So if you feel like there is, something physical happening to the air. So I'm just using the dodge tool to help me find some interesting dodge colors. And I'm just trying to create like a nice pattern, something nice to look at. Before you just had a bit of smoke. She seems like she's like a mage or something, so some kind of energy that travels across. You have a real opportunity to oversaturate, to mess around. So whatever we do in our art is always a reflection of what we have in our lives. So basically I'm just imitating the pattern of a flame, like an actual candle flame or something. Even the outer areas, you could have really played with them. Just like this. You could have given them some asymmetry, something like that. So the hot spot is working up towards the flame, and that's a lot more interesting to look at than just a simple circle that is a simple color. It's a flame, so I'm sure it's not going to be able to stay a mattified color. Might dodge the outsides. Nice job on the gray background though. Kudos on that. And that's a lot more interesting. And now you've got a light source, so all the fun is starting. So I'm going to drop tool that color and bring it just over anything that's facing it. And I'll erase away what I don't need in a second. So I'm just erasing away parts of the feathers that aren't getting any light source. This is a secondary light source. Kind of diffusing the core shadow of the main light source, which you don't really have. It's really a studio fashion shoot kind of really, really soft light that isn't doing much for the form, isn't doing much for the drama. I don't know, like I'm not interested in finding out who she is. But characters that have a really dynamic pose, dynamic presentation, dynamic staging, I want to know what's happening to this character. Who is this character? What's their lore? Which is a big thing. If you get the audience interested in the lore and all of that stuff, That's why you're the concept artist. That's why they hire you. And you're responsible. Yeah, a concept artist is hard as fuck. Like, it's the hardest job ever. You have to conceptualize everything and think about all the physics no one else is thinking about, and think about all the technique no one else is thinking about. So this color is fading away the further you get from the light source. I'm just going to duplicate this and then erase away what I don't need. Sorry about my voice, it's breaking. I went to the beach and I got in the water. Not to swim, I was taking photos. And it's just been shitty since. It was a cold day too. Right, so I'm just fuzzing the sides of this. Sorry if I'm not looking at the comments section. Her face will get a little bit as well. God, is there a mosquito on my tablet? No, Ista's dying. No, someone save her. Evil mosquitoes. Just like this, just on the side that's facing it, and erase away what you don't need. Oops. Side of the chin, the lips, and the horn. Try to get like some real character to the horn. Just look up a reference. Look at how many horns there are in the natural world. You're gonna find tons. Does that not inspire you? I mean, sometimes I really worry. Some of you try to source everything from your minds. I mean, as if your minds were like the codex of all knowledge of the world. They're not. Newsflash. That's a concept artists are responsible for one important thing among many important things, and that's building your visual library. If you're not building your visual library, where are you going to bring in other interesting units to design with? You're a designer. You're a decorator. And you have to be versed in the language of decorating your character. So where are you going to bring all this information from? Look up photos of cultures from all around the world. Look up different animals. How can you combine when you're drawing, an army, a general, and he's the army of a horde, and he's supposed to, he's supposed to look brute and vulgar. Look up some rhino armor. Look up some rhino skin and see if you can incorporate it into the sketch. You've got a world of knowledge waiting for you out there on Google. You just have to Google image it and see if you can. You don't have to bring in the horn. You don't have to bring in anything other than that leathery, weird little armor feeling on that horde leader. And that's something big. That's something valuable that you brought to the table with the design. I'm going to bring in some of that skin tone and place it on her breast. Yeah, she's wearing a see-through shirt, but it's not so see-through that it's completely changed the way the breasts work. No, the breasts will still have their own little light sources and they'll still feel real. Do you see how much more real they feel now? Also, the belly button is super high. She's got high-waisted pants. So she's gonna have her belly button kind of touching on the pants. Aw, you think I'm inspiring? Aw, thank you. I hope. I hope I don't disappoint. Alright. So I'm just placing some light over here. Just under the belly button, because that's the part that faces the light upward, sorry. And then there'll be a little bit of a shadow down here along the side of her obliques. And that feels like she's more, wearing a high-waisted shorts than trying to force the fact that the belly button is in between. Like, sometimes it's symbolic. Sometimes you just, from your drawings or from what you see, the belly button is in between the underwear and the bra. And then when you draw an underwear and you don't know you've done it with a really high waist, you're just going to put it right there. And that's why you did it. Because in your mind, that's what you told yourself when you were studying. The belly button is always in between. This is a pure symbol for me right now that you are depending on the symbols in your mind and you don't have enough studies right now to build up this knowledge, this codex in your brain. Just going to illuminate a little bit more over here because this is reflective material, so it's going to have a higher reflection rate than any other material on the body because it's armor, it's like metallic. So it's going to have a little bit of like hot spots over here as well. The feathers are oily, so they're going to have some high reflection as well. Just like that. And feathers are messy, so where's the mess on the sides? Where is this mess? Unless they've gotten oil and literally oiled down these feathers. And that's how they look soft, but we need to see some like real, like a halo of just feathers. Some of that light might be behind the feathers. Sorry if the critique took so long. I hope the lesson though was translated well. So right behind the feathers there might be some light as well captured by the glow of the spell. Just some though, because it's not behind. Yeah, the face is beautiful. Absolutely. I completely agree. Just a little bit more on the thighs. And you probably want a cast shadow if this is being submitted. Just something quick, just for the bottom as well. And this little dress that she's got on, let me throw something really quick. You have a chance to create some interesting layering. Oops. So some of it might be on top of her skin, and that would look really, really pretty. So I'm just going to drop tool that color and bring it over. You see how nice that is? It's like layering that we have. But this one has some highlight on it. So that's a nice little extra piece of information you offer to your viewers, and that means more intrigue because you brought in more info, more detail. Of course, make it a better, it bends with the form of her thighs, so you're going to have to do that and have to make it bend around. So, you know, you learned a lot today. There was a lot that was talked about, and the biggest thing is that you have to be aware of what it is that's sourcing the problems. You can't just say, I have a rendering problem. I have a symmetry problem in my portraits. You know, we're all here to improve, so we understand what we need to improve on. Okay. So fair, you guys found out what it is that you don't know that you're doing with the critique. What do you do after the critique is over? You have to find an execution plan. You have to build a plan of action. All right, so I have a portraiture problem and the symmetry is wrong. What am I skipping? So what I tell you in my critiques is what it is that you're skipping, which is the symmetry lines. So start focusing on some symmetry lines in your studies. Give symmetry lines a chance. You have to, eventually you're just going to give in. These are the rules. This is what I talk about when I say there are rules that are meant to be broken and some that are meant not to be broken. Symmetry lines, if you want to draw realistic faces, they can't be broken. These rules can't be broken. It's a symmetry line. That's the anatomy we're talking about. We can't break anatomy rules because it'll look uncanny because the real world is out there to prove us wrong. But when it comes to, you know, figure drawing and stuff like that, some rules can be broken. You can stretch your characters, you can elongate them, you can make them short and stubby. But you still have to have a knowledge. If you have a technique problem that I'm telling you right now that you have, this person who drew this, if you have a figure drawing problem, if your figures look stiff and not easy to believe, not approachable, start doing some gesture lines. Forget about rendering and color for a while. Skip it. Forget about it. Stop trying to make a masterpiece. You're still a student. And that's the bottom line. You have to start sketching some figures, get some references going. There's so many websites out there that are available for that purpose. So you cannot come up with the excuse if the excuse is nothing interests me in the figure drawing reference world. You're going to see the difference in your drawings. New sketching techniques, great new knowledge built out of figure drawing, plus your rendering skill, plus your color choice skill, plus your face drawing skill. You're going to be, a top-notch artist in like a couple months if you just study right and study efficiently. So don't just listen to my critiques and say, well, next time I'll try to, I'll try to make it look more fluid. I'll look up a reference. No, actually study it. Take it on. Take it by the horns. You know, it kind of relates to what you're trying. And that's pretty much it for this critique. I don't know if I can do another one, but let me see if I can rush through the rest. So before, after, I brought that horn down, I brought that secondary light source. It felt a lot more intriguing. Still extremely stiff, extremely Barbie-like. And, there isn't much. I'm sorry about the shadow. It was really crappy, but you know what to do when you have to do it. But please try to get some figure drawing in your life. And gesture lines, that's the most important thing. The gesture is what you're trying to encapsulate, not the anatomy, not medical drawings. We're not here to draw medical drawings. Stop trying to memorize every muscle group for the love of God. Just get the general gist of it. All of that coupled with a beautiful gesture line equals a figure drawing that flows. So I'm going to look at the rest of these really quickly. I have numerous videos on how to paint a nose. I might update it and get a new one. Make a new one, I mean, but there are videos available right now about form in the nose and how to create a functioning looking nose. The neck needs to be thinned out a little bit. You're bringing in male signifiers of strength, which is high laterals, or trapezius muscles, sorry, which get really big around here. And if you do that, your character will look burly and butchy. I don't know if that's the right way to use that word. I think I just insulted a gender group. But I'm bringing in that. Yes, Bob and Steve. Endless feud between Bob and Steve. Oh God, what the heck was I doing? I was teaching like such an idiot. It was like Bob and Steve. Bob. Bringing down the chin. Round off the chin a little bit. Still needs to remain pointy because remember the cuteness triangle. But this is beautifully chosen colors, by the way. Beautiful eyes. You have eyes right on. Do some nose studies. And if you want to know what it is you don't know how to draw, look at your drawing and look at what's weakest, what reads the least. You don't need side bridge shades. You don't need them. The only one you need is the one. Sorry, fuck. The only one you need is the one in between the eyebrows. Son of a bitch! Stupid fucking Time Warner. Sorry. Their stupid telemarketing. Alright, the second shadow that you need is the shadow under the nose, so the first triangle. Alright, the second triangle is invisible. Don't go and draw me these things, they will not make the nose read. You need the function. The function is found in the form. So what is the form telling us? The form is telling us the nose sticks out. So we need the shadow here first. The shadow is two-parter. One of it is the cast shadow, and one part of it is the cast shadow, and one part of it is the actual nose, the under part of the nose, which is what you're trying to draw. You're not trying to draw up here. Everything is under here. This is where it's all happening. The nostrils are happening down here. The tip of the nose is happening down here. I'm sorry, I'm losing my voice. The nose cast shadow is happening down here. So we've got nose part 1, triangle part 1, and triangle part 2. This part is this part. It's not here. Stop trying to draw the parts that the light touches. There's no shadows there. There are no shadows there for you to render. You want to sketch this part right here. This is where the shadow happens, the nostril happens, and the shadow happens. Cast shadow, under part of the nose, under part of the nose. So what's next? Get the shadow color in your color palette. So you've probably got a color palette somewhere nearby and use that. Next up are the nostrils. Throw 2 dark spots. As you know, the nostrils are one of the main dark spots of the face. Doesn't have to be perfect. And then I'm going to up my opacity and find out the areas that I should blend. So I'm blending the lower part of the nostril with the shadow. And I'm not blending the top. I'm bringing in a lighter shade, because that's the part that faces down. So it's already starting to read, and these are just 3 essential strokes. Triangle, slit, slit, a little bit of cleaning, but 3 essential strokes when we have a nose? Come on. That's called efficient painting. Everyone should be doing that. I'm going to throw your mid-tone color over everything. And then bring in the highlighter only where I need it. This is where you start bringing in the color that happens on the upper part of the nose, the part that the light touches. What do you do above this shadow line? Well, you bring in the tip of the nose highlight, because the tip of the nose is one of the highest points on the face, and a little bit on either nostril, because the nostrils also have an upward facing part. And guess what? That's it. The nose is reading. There are some areas you have to not blend with anything else. So that's the sides of the nostrils. The sides of the nostrils don't connect to the skin yet. They connect behind. You can bring in a cupid's bow. You can bring in a secondary light source beneath the nose. So the tip of the nose gets some light source on it, because the upper part of the lips reflect on the nose. Don't forget that. So does everyone see what's happening? Minimal strokes, maximum efficiency, maximum readability, maximum believability. That's where you want to be. You want to read your reference just like that. You can make it darker, but make it darker only in the deepest part of the nostril. Don't just throw a big blob of black, over the entire cavity. It's only in the darkest spot. Right, so I'm not blending the sides of the nose, they're staying sharp. I'm bringing in a lighter cast shadow to keep it soft. You might want to enlarge the nose, shrink the nose, it's your choice. Next thing is the lips. They're kind of asymmetrical, they're doing their own little thing, so I would kind of bring in just some symmetry to the lips. Making asymmetrical looking lips is one really amazing way to make the face look distinguished and organic. But if you're trying to make maximum beauty right now, try to preserve the symmetry. Beautiful, beautiful lips. What I'm doing now, color. See, it's very minimal color, but it reads. Nice job on fading out the corners of the lips. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tuck in the inner sides of that lips to make it feel like they're being pushed up by flesh and muscle. Before they were kind of flat looking, and now they have a bit more of a dynamic presence with the 3D sort of protrusions of the face already there. Half the face will always be in shadow, because that's the sphere, the underlying shape. So I'm going to bring in that shadow color that you have, and the only points of relief are the high points. And you don't just place that light everywhere, you place it only in the points of relief. Where are these points? High points of the cheekbone, the chin, only in the highest point of the chin, not the whole chin. And it's going to be lighter than the forehead. Everything, the lightest spot is the forehead in the Rembrandt type lighting. The second lightest is the nose and cheekbones, because they're in the same vicinity. Nose a bit more because it sticks out. The third lightest are the lip lights just above the lips, because the lips stick out like fish. And the third lightest, and last lightest, the final lightest, is the chin, and it cannot be as light as the cheeks or the forehead, because it's the furthest away. A little bit of shadow from the lips going down. Darken the lip, darken the teeth. The teeth will not get that much white in them. They're almost as white as the eyes. The teeth are inside a cavity, which is the mouth. Right? I'm going to bring in some blush. I'm going to use the lip color, throw it over the nose, throw it over the cheeks. If you want to make her look vampiric, go ahead. And I'm going to bring a little bit of that red into the eyes. And one big thing that you forgot, your eyes are beautiful, but one big thing that you guys forget is the lower eyelid. If I was a makeup artist, which I am, I would not only, if I'm making a smoky eye, I'm not only going to throw some makeup on the top lid, I have to place the makeup on the bottom lid or else she'll look like she's washed out. So you'll see the instant realism as soon as I throw in a bottom lid, even the slightest presence of a bottom lid. You guys forget about that all the time. Why? It's not a mythical creature. It's real. It's existed. It's still with us today. We have bottom eyelids, believe me. The eyes will have more gesture. Bottom eyelids that are squinting adds more beauty. A lot of models squint their lower eyelids when they're being photographed. It just adds a gesture to the eyes. There's going to be some highlight moving over the brow and into the brow bone. Where you placed the highlights before was symbolic. It wasn't accurate. You placed it out here. There's no light out here. There's only light just around here on the on switch. I call it the on switch. It's this. Light around the nose, and then light around this part of the face. So I don't mean to istify your painting. I just mean to find a way to bring in some believability and form. Good job on the neck shadow, but don't let the neck shadow trail all the way to the outside. It's only on the highest point of the neck, and that's where we get the lightest. For the collarbones, throw one. I'm going to do a video on collarbones soon, and collar, the whole cleavage area. So all you need is one base color. You don't need any extra shading or anything like that. One base color. Find your light point. One highlight for each collarbone. One highlight in between the breasts, which you had, trailing up. And one highlight for the high points of the breast. And that's it. All that's left is blending. There are some shadows that are cast off the collarbone. Very, very gently. Some areas of the breast are not blended because they're really, really sharp peaks. Just like that. And then you can bring in a slight shadow for anything below, things that stick out. So below the collarbone, tiny little shadows, nothing severe on the sides of the breasts. Same thing with the shoulders, by the way. They also need their own shadow and their own high point. And then I'll fix what I did with the soft brush. So I'll sharpen the sides again. Oops. So that reads more because we're thinking about the high points and low points, and that's what form and function are all about. Your 3D cube and its faces, which sides of it are facing the light and which sides of it aren't. Before, after. I want to change my mind about this part. Didn't put a highlight on this boob. Carries up this way. Nope. Sorry, one sec. Stupid soft brush. You'd never want to make any dark spots happen, so look at where the dark spots, where there's a tiny little dark spot near the breast. You don't want to take anything away from the face. Before, the vertical symmetry was kind of dragging out. Her face looked a little bit wide. The neck was too thick. The eye was facing some other direction. It wasn't centered back. The nose was just completely speaking another language. It was the weakest area in the entire face. So now the beauty of what you did with the eyes can be presented without much of an obstacle. The nose isn't in the way. As you see what I did with the lips, I kind of brought them back towards the symmetry line. The nose, when you do one bad thing and you fix it, you see how it affected all the other features. So if you draw one bad eye, it could affect that cheek, and that cheek could affect that lip corner. So is everybody with me? Chin could be thinner. Yeah, there's some stuff that my liquify didn't really do for me, like this here. Like, what the hell? The neck could be a little thicker, but I'm just worried about telling you to do that because it might be too much. I want you to overcompensate and bring it a little bit thinner, and then I'll correct it if you do it again. Okay? So good job on the eyes. Very beautiful. Try to do some nose studies. And that's it for today. Like this is a whole other ball game. There's a gesture issue, anatomy issue, lighting issue, portraiture issue, and reference issue. That's, if you have that many points down, the picture is not successful. That's why it's very different to read it. Hey Draken, it's been long. Yeah, she does look like a young Annie Lennox. Been too long, bro. Okay, and this one, you're really shading everything two-dimensionally. I feel like there are some shadows that could have been used. Let me try to do it real quick. So I'm going to throw a shadow over everything and erase only the areas that I know I need. So what does that mean? That means the high points of everything. It's a bad quality image, but it's okay. So I'm going to get my eraser and I'm going to erase the highest point of the chest. Look at that. Instantly. It's like an instant thing. I'm going to erase any areas that there are no shadows on the face, so the collarbone, but over here there's a shadow from the head. So we have a cast shadow. Holy crap, this is amazing. I'm going to erase areas that are shiny, so this is shinier fabric. I'm going to erase the high points of the fabric over here, so the sleeve. I'm going to erase a high point on the shoulder blades, the shoulder pads. So as you can see, you weren't thinking about the 3D structure, you were just piecing together a Lego toy. There was no real thought about, what's the cube? Where's the cube? If you don't think about the cube betrays you and your image starts to look really, really flat. High point of the shirt sticking out, catching some light. Not all the way. High point of the pants. The highest point of the pants is right here. It does not share itself with the low point, so there's just a clean edge right over there. High point of the hand. Oops. And the armoire, not armoire, what's it called? That armor piece that you put on the arm, the forearm, the gauntlet. Oh, it's not a gauntlet. Sleeves. It's not called sleeves though. That's like a really basic bracer. There we go. Okay. And then now we would have some cast shadows from this sleeve onto this arm. Really nice, clean, crispy. This sleeve would stick out a little more actually. Where else would we have some cast shadows? The belt would cast a nice, clean, crispy shadow. It's making me crave Cheetos now. Over the legs, and then we would have some yummy high points on anything leathery or reflective. So I'm just gonna bring in my dodge tool on midtones because I don't want to burn anything. I'm just gonna place some nice highlights over the belt. Back to the face, only the high points that I showed you earlier with the other face, cheekbones, lips, and chin. And the tip of the nose, of course. It's kind of too red in that department too. I'm going to desaturate the reds. Bring everything down to a nice, even. Way way too red in the shadows. You want purple in the shadows. You don't want reds in the shadows. Now you're just breaking like the biggest rule. Color theory, and that's a big thing. Let me just get the color. Can't spot desaturate on this thing. Just like that. You don't want to have too much red. You're going to see how much red you had before. That was too much. The gesture of the hands is kind of inaccurate. The pinky would have to be really long to stretch all the way over here. Because this build up, you're telling me the tip of the palm is over here. So the pinky is so long it can stretch all the way. For me, I would just say the pinky right at the very end. Just sticking out, trying to be useful. Pinkies are so useless. So that's what the pinky would be. Oh, I feel so bad now. The pinky would sort of stick out. I'm sorry, pinky. Oh no, I want to kiss my pinky. Alright, so this pinky would sort of just hang over there. Just like that instead of wrap around. And finally, the top of the hat. Just the top. And then I'm going to darken the hat. Just like this. And then erase away what I don't need. So the top of the hat absolutely is the lightest. And then moving down. Probably has an edge to it. Hats have sort of that point where they bend. Just like that. So we have some cube. He kind of looks like a young boy. So I'm going to enlarge his eyes. His eyes are too small. He has the eyes of a teenager, kind of like, you know, 18-year-old with the body of a 12-year-old. So you might want to enlarge the eyes. Shrink the nose. Remember all the cute signifiers. Damn it, what are you guys giving me such bad quality? Okay. And then shrink the lips in a little bit. He'll look tough, he'll look stern. But you see before he kind of looked a little bit like the, 20-year-old stuck in a 12-year-old body. And I'm just going to sharpen that. And then fix the dark side of that eye. Aren't we all 20-year-olds? Or, no. We're all 8-year-olds stuck in 20-year-olds' bodies. Especially nowadays, those games. Place some light under here. Alright, so let's take a look at that before and after. Okay, I really screwed that eye up now, didn't I? Damn! Alright, much better. So actually before I go, I'm just going to dodge tool just in a circle. Just along here. You see how the chest has a high point now, guys? Does everybody see this? This is shinier. This looks like it's really shiny. Now if you want, actually I'm not done. Now if you want to bring in some more three-dimensional feel, you can use that trick where we just fade off the parts on the side into the distance color. So the color of the background takes over ever so slightly. So it's not a lot, it's a very delicate amount. So it's as if the background is reflecting, so there's a small cast shadow over here that's kind of sharp. You see that? And that's creating that clash, a secondary light source. And I'm just darkening that part of the shirt. So you see now there's more form. And you can do that everywhere else. Just erase away what you don't need. That lecture on figure drawing kind of took up the class time. Sorry if the class is taking a bit long for those in Europe. Forgive me. Right, same with this leg. This leg you can just gray it out altogether. That'll sort of work to create the feeling of depth. Very, very slight. And I'm going to merge that down. Filter, liquefy, and I'm going to flatten this foot. This foot seems like it's on like a downward slope. What you want to do is flatten the foot as if it's on a flat surface, which it is. Sorry, you can kind of see where I flattened it. This leg is kind of out of place. You might want to straighten it. Kind of seems like it's completely leaving. That nose is too bright. And the nostril is too low. Sorry, I'm being a real perfectionist today. So this leg, I would recommend you just tilt it back. Just like so. Just tilting back towards the body. He seemed like he had like a lamb leg or a fawn leg, because it was kind of not under the body anymore, it was somewhere else. You see? Before, after, was really out of the way. I mean, he could have been stretching it, but the foot doesn't tell me that he's trying to push his toes forward. The foot seems pretty stable, so I recommend that. Before and after again. Before, after. You see? Do you see? I'm just gonna, whoops. 10. And then I'll fix it. The foot gesture is a bit off. Now that I've changed it, you see when you fix one thing, you notice other problems. Liquefy. Just like that. This foot would sort of face us, face the camera, so it would be more like that. I'll let you deal with that. Alright, so let's look at the before and after. Look at the shirt mostly, that's where it really worked best. Before, after. He's kind of tilting now. Before, and look at the face. The face was really red. Before, after. Look at the shirt. After. So this is about thinking about high points, not painting flat and hoping that everything works together, and shading gradients and hoping that they work. It's not about that. It's about finding the high points and shading in those areas only, because that's where the light comes in. So I can bring in my sharpen tool and sharpen every area that the light touches, and it'll look like the character is more detailed. Because that's what happens in real life. We see more info and we see more detail where the light is touching. Period. The light reveals to us shadows of minor objects, hence the detail emerges. So he looks a lot more detailed now with the sharpen tool, but I didn't place that sharpen everywhere. I placed it only in the areas the light touches. Before. So thanks everyone for coming. Have a great day. Bye-bye.